There's lots of reasons for having a will, the most important of which is you're taking control of what you want to happen to your property, your assets and your cash when you die. You're not leaving it to chance, you're not leaving it to the law, you're taking control. Anybody can make a will over the age of 18 in England and Wales. It's 12 in Scotland, actually. But in England and Wales, it's over the age of 18, and you've got to have what we call mental capacity as lawyers. You've got to be of sound mind. So it's really important that you do have a will.
Yeah, so then, if you die without a will, what would happen to your stuff?
OK, depends where you live. So in England and Wales, if you die without having a will, if you're married, the first £270,000 goes to your spouse. Anything over that £270,000 will go to 50% back to your spouse and 50% to your children. So if you've got less than 270,000, if you die without a will, your children actually don't get anything. It all goes to your spouse. In Scotland, it's different. Northern Ireland's very similar to England and Wales. Scotland, it's different. It depends how much you're leaving and whether you've got spouse or children. Scottish law is actually quite complicated and they are looking to change it. So as a lawyer, that can't come soon enough. But it's really important that you look at where you live and what laws apply to you if you die without a will. But remember, Steph, you can avoid all of that if you get a will drafted.
Yes. So, and when you say spouse, this is very strict in legal terms. We're talking about married to or civil partner. So if you haven't got that, that completely changes the game if you die.
Oh, it does. And it's so important that people understand that. So if you're at home and you're watching this, if you're not married, you're in a very precarious situation if your loved one, your other half, dies without leaving a will. No matter how long you've been together, now it could be 20 years, 30 years, there's no such thing, sadly, as a common law husband and wife in England and Wales. You are not going to automatically inherit, and that's a scary situation to be in if your loved one dies. In Scotland, you're in a slightly better position. You have 6 months within which to make a claim on the estate and go to court. But look, nobody wants to do that if your other half has died. You can take back control of that if you do leave a will. Scotland has a different property ownership system than England and Wales. And in England and Wales, so what I'm about to say doesn't apply to Scotland, but in England and Wales, the biggest asset is normally your house. It's the property that you live in. Now, that house, it depends how you own it. Commonly, people own the house as joint tenants. And what that means is the other half automatically goes to the partner. If you don't own it as joint tenants and you're not married, and in fact, it's not just your house, it's your personal possessions as well, they won't automatically go to your partner. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been together, they don't stand to inherit. Outside of Scotland, even if you're separated, if you're not legally divorced, and this is very common, people who don't choose to get divorced, but they just separate, it might be for religious reasons, for example, a whole host of reasons you may not choose to divorce. If you're not legally divorced, as long as you've been separated, your assets may go back to your spouse, which is probably the last thing people want, and your children don't end up with anything.
Yeah, so you can actually make a will to, even if you're married, that doesn't include the person you're married to, should you need, you know, be in that kind of relationship.
You're right. And look, in your will, you can do whatever you want. What you have to remember is, if you're about to get married, marriage does actually void your will. So if you have got married, any life-changing events, like, for example, marriage, divorce, having children, buying a house, having your first property, all of these should be triggers in your life to get a will. Divorce itself, it doesn't invalidate a will, but it's as though your spouse no longer exists. But it's a really, actually, it's a straightforward area of law when you know it, but if you don't know it, I think it's really important that you seek legal advice.
So what do you need to decide before you can make a will, and can you do it yourself?
OK, sit back and look at what you've got and how you want to share it out. So, first of all, make a list of what you've got. And I'm not just talking about the big assets and items here. I'm talking about personal and family heirlooms. You might even be thinking about your pet. What do you want to happen to your pet if the worst was to happen to you? So, make a list of what you've got and how you want to share it out. Think about, for example, your children. So, what age do you want them to inherit at? Is 18 too young? Do you want 21? Do you want 25? Do you even want 30? Think about appointing guardians in your will if you've got children. So it's really important that you have that very difficult conversation, but it makes sense to have it whilst you're able to. executors, who do you want to put these plans in place, your witnesses to your will. Your witnesses can't be beneficiaries under the will or any spouses to a beneficiary. You can actually, in COVID times, have your will executed, signed in via video link. That was a change that came about in recent law. Cost of a will, £80 upwards. Lots of very good places that'll do wills for you. You can, in theory, Steph, do your own will. You can do a DIY, you know, get a piece of paper, write last will and testament and do it. But I strongly, strongly, strongly advise you against that. Minor irregularities could invalidate your will, especially in Scotland where they're super strict. So really important that you get the right advice. You can go to a solicitor, you can go to charities that will do them. Will month is coming up in March where you can have your will done for free if you're over the age of 55, in exchange if you want for a charitable donation. Banks, will writing services, all of which are there for you to have. The point I'm trying to make is it's quick, it's easy, and it will save you a lot of stress and heartache in the long
having just
run.
done mine recently, I can say it is actually easier than you think it's going to be. It involves a couple of tricky conversations, but then it's done, and that makes you feel better.